The first thing my wife said after telling me she was pregnant wasn't "I love you." It wasn't even "we're going to be parents." She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "My ex deserved to hear it before you." For a few seconds I couldn't speak. I had spent 7 years believing Norah and I were building a life together. But that sentence made me realize something. Maybe I had been building a life with someone who had never completely left her past behind. She expected me to explode. Instead, I smiled and quietly said, "You're right. He does deserve to hear it." Her face changed because she didn't know what I had already discovered, and she definitely didn't know that I had one question waiting for her, a question that would change everything. Chapter 1: The Announcement. My name is John. Norah and I had been married for 7 years. We didn't have children, mostly because Norah always said she wasn't ready. Whenever I brought up having a family, she'd say, "Maybe someday." I respected that. I never pressured her. I worked hard, saved money, and built the kind of stable life I thought we'd eventually share with kids. Then, one Tuesday evening, Norah came home unusually excited. She put her purse down, walked into the kitchen, and said, "John, I'm pregnant." I froze. For one brief moment, I felt every emotion at once. Shock, happiness, fear, hope. I hugged her, but she didn't hug me back for long. She pulled away and looked at her phone. Then she said something that completely destroyed the moment. I already told Daniel. Daniel was her ex. I knew his name. I'd known about him since before our wedding. But I never imagined he was still important enough to receive news about our future before I did. I stared at her. "You told him before me?" She shrugged. "He deserved to know." "Why?" "Because of our history." I nodded slowly. Then I asked, "Does he know you're pregnant?" "Yes." "And what did he say?" She hesitated, then whispered, "He wants to talk." Chapter 2: The Man from Her Past. That night, Norah spent almost an hour texting Daniel. I didn't ask to see her phone. I didn't need to. Her expression told me enough. She smiled at messages she wouldn't show me. She turned the screen away whenever I walked past. Then she suddenly said, "Don't make this weird, John." I looked at her. "I'm not making anything weird. You're acting jealous." I almost laughed. Jealous? My wife had just told another man she was carrying a child, and somehow I was the problem. I went upstairs, but I didn't sleep, because there was something Norah didn't know. 2 weeks earlier, I'd received an email from a clinic. It was a billing notice. The appointment wasn't under my name. It wasn't under Norah's name either. It was connected to a private consultation she'd apparently scheduled. At the time, I assumed it was something personal and gave her privacy. But now, I couldn't ignore it. So the next morning, I called the clinic. They couldn't discuss medical information with me, but they confirmed one thing. Norah had not been a patient there for a pregnancy test. That wasn't proof of anything, but it was enough to make me stop believing every word she said. Chapter 3: The Question. That evening, I sat across from Norah at the kitchen table. I didn't accuse her. I didn't yell. I simply asked, "Are you sure you're pregnant?" Her eyes widened. What kind of question is that? An honest one. She stood up. "You don't trust me?" I looked at her for several seconds. "I trusted you enough to never ask." She became angry. Then she grabbed her purse. "You're impossible." I let her walk toward the door. Then I said, "Norah." She stopped. "I know you met Daniel last Friday." She slowly turned around. "And I know you didn't tell me." Her face went pale. I continued, "I also know you met him twice before that." She stared at me. "How?" "I wasn't following you." I placed my phone on the table. "I was sent something." She stepped closer. On the screen were photographs. Norah meeting Daniel at a restaurant. Norah getting into his car. And one photo of Daniel holding her hand. Norah sat down. For the first time, she looked scared. Chapter 4: The Truth. "I can explain," she whispered. I nodded. "Then explain." She started crying. She admitted that she'd been seeing Daniel for several months. Not every day. Not constantly. But enough. She said she had convinced herself it wasn't serious. Then she discovered she was pregnant. And instead of telling me immediately, she went to Daniel. I asked the question I had been afraid to ask. "Is the baby mine?" She looked down. "I don't know." That answer hurt more than anything else. But I didn't explode. I simply stood up. "I need a DNA test." She nodded. "I know." The test was done privately. For 3 weeks, I waited. Those 3 weeks felt longer than the previous 7 years. Then the results arrived. I opened the envelope alone. The result was clear. I was not the biological father. But the story didn't end there, because I had one final decision to make, and it wasn't the one Norah expected. Chapter 5. My Revenge. Norah assumed I'd expose her. She expected me to send the photographs to her family. She expected me to destroy Daniel's reputation. She expected revenge. Instead, I did something completely different. I hired an attorney. Not to ruin Norah, to protect myself. I filed for divorce and separated our finances legally. I moved out quietly. Then I gave Norah one envelope. Inside was the DNA result. She looked at it and began crying. "I never wanted to hurt you," I answered. "But you did." She asked, "Are you going to tell everyone?" I shook my head. "No." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I don't need everyone to hate you for me to move on." Then I gave her the final piece of paper. It was a letter. Not from me, from Daniel. He had refused to take responsibility. He had blocked Norah after learning about the pregnancy. She stared at the message in disbelief. The man she'd chosen over our marriage had already disappeared. Chapter 6. The ending she never expected. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Norah eventually gave birth. Daniel never returned. I never became the child's father. But I also never blamed the baby. That innocent child had nothing to do with the choices adults had made. Years later, Norah contacted me. She didn't ask me to come back. She didn't ask for money. She simply said, "You were the only person who treated me with dignity after I destroyed everything." I replied, "I wasn't protecting you." She paused. "Then what were you doing?" I said, "Protecting the person I was becoming. That was my revenge. I didn't destroy her life. I didn't expose her secrets. I didn't chase Daniel. I simply walked away with my dignity intact." Norah thought losing me would be temporary. She thought I'd eventually forgive her because I had always been the patient one. But sometimes the strongest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's refusing to let their betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize. And that was the day I learned something I'll never forget. You can forgive someone without giving them another chance. Norah wanted me to fight for our marriage. Instead, I finally fought for myself. If you want more stories, kindly subscribe to our channel, My Beautiful Family.